Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to chat through some of the classics that I think would make a really good starting point if you're a beginner to the genre. I have been reading classics for a very long time, but last year I decided to focus a bit more on reading classics and set myself the intention of reading one each month. I had a really good time. I think I ended up reading more like about 17 because I just got really into the role with it. I set the same intention this year, but I have been reading definitely more than one a month. Some I've been really enjoying, some less so, but that is the nature of the beast. But I thought I would talk through good places to start because I've had a few questions from people, so I thought I would make a video out of it. So obviously within classics as a genre, there's lots of subgenres, and I think the best place to start depends on which subgenre you're most interested in. So I've got some books to recommend for you if you already read modern, middle grade or children's books. I've also got some to recommend if you like contemporary, and I've got some to recommend if you like the darker end of things, kind of the more gothic horror sort of thriller end, because I think what will work for you depends on what you're already reading, because classics can be a little bit intimidating. So if you can find something to get you into it that's similar to what you're already reading, I think that's going to be the easiest way forward. So first of all, children's classics. I have been absolutely loving going back and reading or rereading, in some cases, children's classics over the last 18 months. They just bring so much joy to my soul, and I've just been having a wonderful time. You can see some of them up there. I've also got some different editions down here. And yeah, they have just been such a joy. So the first one I'm going to suggest that you start with is The Railway Children by Nesbit. This was published, I think, in 1903. Let me just check my facts before I tell you that. And it basically follows three children who... Sorry, 1906 this was published. Follow three children whose father is taken away one night, and they have to move from their very privileged life in London to the country, where they live alone with their mother, who is struggling to support them. And it's about them basically making friends with the local railway and the community. And this is just such a wonderful book. It's got a really lovely message at the centre of it about family, about looking after other people. It's a lot about found family, as you guys know, is always my jam. And it's also got, for a book that was published in 1906, it's got some very strong feminist messages in it, which I didn't expect when I read it. And it was obviously a very welcome surprise. And yeah, I just think this is a really good one. The language is very easy and accessible. All of the books that I'm going to recommend have got very accessible language, so don't be scared of that. And it's just such a sweet, cozy, comfy book. The next one I'm going to recommend is also in that kind of category, and that is A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. In this we follow Sarah. Some people call her Sarah because of the way that her book's spelled, but we're going to go with Sarah. Her book is spelled, her name is spelled, but we follow Sarah, who comes over from India. She has lost her mother years before, and her father decides it's time for her to get her education, so he brings her over from India, and she goes to a very elite boarding school. And then something happens and she loses everything, and she has to become a servant in the house. And it's basically the main message in this is about being kind no matter your circumstances. And again, this has got such a beautiful message at the centre of it. It's really well written, made me cry a couple times because there are some sad bits in this one. But overall, it's just a wonderful, wonderful book, and I would really, really recommend it, especially if you're new to the genre. And then moving into the sort of, it is a children's classic, but I think it would actually, if it was published today, it'd be YA, and that is Little Women by Louise May Alcott. This has been getting a lot of attention because of the film that came out, which is also amazing, and I would highly recommend that. Saw it twice, absolutely loved it. Definitely gonna see it again when it comes out on like DVD or Netflix or whatever. And this is literally just the lives of four sisters, and it's one of those books that when you hear the description you're like, okay, sure. And then I read it, and I read it for the first time, I think it was this year or the end of last year. Absolutely adored it. Again, much like The Railway Children, this has got some very strong feminist messages in it. There's also a theory that Jo, who is our main protagonist, is possibly a trans character. I can't comment on that. I don't think anyone can, because obviously the author is dead, so she can't answer that for us. But there's strong conversations in here about gender, about being yourself, finding yourself, and also the strength, like the bond between sisters and family love. And I absolutely adore this book and would always recommend it. But especially if you're looking for a classic to get into that's not like a direct like children's classic, this is definitely, you know, Jo, I think, is a teenager when this starts, and this feels just a little bit older and more mature than the traditional children's classics. So yeah, if you enjoy YA contemporary fantasy, I think Little Women would be a good one to give a try. Now, I said that I had a recommendation for if you like contemporary literature, and there is an author, a classics author, that I think goes really well with that kind of thing, and that's Jane Austen. And the book that I'm going to recommend in particular is Emma. So Emma is her longest book, but don't be intimidated. And we basically follow the life of Emma, who is a wealthy young woman. She likes to matchmake other people, and it's about her falling in love. And you know, the film Clueless is based on this, so if you've seen Clueless, you already know the storyline of this, so it will be familiar. This to me is my favourite Jane Austen because I think it's her most playful and most satirical. She was an incredibly witty, funny, clever author. You can see the others over there. And I think Pride and Prejudice gets a lot of attention, which it should, because it's a wonderful book. But actually, my favourite Austen is Emma. And I think if you like contemporary, like enemies to lovers, there's enemies to lovers in this. And yeah, if you enjoy like contemporary books like that, I would really recommend this one. Right, we're now moving into the darker side of things, because obviously I read a lot of thrillers, as you can see here. And so when I was looking to get into classics, I started with adult ones, and read some really good ones, read a few that I was like, this is really hard to get into. So you just have to be kind of careful what you choose. So I've got 3 to recommend you. 2 I loved, 1 I didn't, but I know that the one I didn't is an unpopular opinion, so we'll start with the one I didn't love but I would still recommend, which is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Now, I know that I'll probably get my Booktuber channel revoked for saying that I didn't enjoy this book, but in my defence, I thought this was going to be like a gothic, tense, creepy book. And it isn't. It's definitely a mystery, and I am planning on rereading this at some point this year because I feel like I need to give it a second shot, knowing actually what it is. But in this we follow an unnamed protagonist, which is also something I had a bit of a problem with, but that's just my reading taste, who basically meets this older, wealthy man, marries him and goes back to his big sprawling mansion, and she finds that the kind of ghost, not literal, it's not a ghost story, of Rebecca, who was his first wife, is basically hanging over the property, and the servants love her, and our protagonist is constantly compared to her, and it's about trying to work out the mystery of what happened to Rebecca, but also watching our protagonist kind of slide into madness. Yeah, like I said, I didn't love this, but then I had false expectations of this book. It is considered a classic. I think it was published in the 60s maybe. When were you published? No, I'm completely lying. 1938, so I don't know anything about what I'm talking about, so just ignore me really. This is a Booktube darling. I am going to try it again at some point, but if you are looking for a classic story, again, it's very accessible and readable. I would give this one a try. One that was more successful for me, but is definitely on the creepy side of things, is The Woman in Black by Susan Hill. I loved this. So I first came across this when I saw the play. I've seen the play a couple of times. One of the scariest kind of events I've ever been to, but if you ever get the chance, definitely go, because I would really recommend it. Then I saw the film starring Daniel Radcliffe, which I think is a really good adaptation, and then I read the book, so I definitely did it backwards. However, I really, really enjoyed the book, and it's very short. It's very creepy. I read it in one sitting. I mean, if you really wanted to creep yourself out, you could maybe read it in one go at night. That would be a creepy thing to do. And in this we follow a young lawyer who is basically sent to Marsh House because the old lady that lives there has died, and he has to go and sort through all of her papers and sort her estate out. And when he's there, he keeps glimpsing this woman dressed all in black. And that is all I'm going to tell you because it's really short and I don't want to spoil it. But if you're looking for a creepy gothic classic, this is definitely for you. And then the final classic that I'm going to talk about is definitely a classic. Let me just check when it was published. In 1908. And that is The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. I love this. Of all of the classics I've read that aren't children's classics, this is my favourite because this is so well written, and this cover, I kind of hate the Penguin Classic editions, I think they're quite ugly, but this cover is creepy in all the right ways. So we follow a young woman who takes a post as a governess to 2 children in a remote house, and things happen from there. Again, much like The Woman in Black, this is one of the creepiest things I've ever read. Like, again, I read this in one sitting because it's very short, and you know, it's just over 100 pages long, and it's one of those things where you're reading and you think, if I look up right now, I'm gonna see X, Y, and Z. So I'd really recommend this if you're looking for a creepy read that's also a classic and also a really good way into the genre. I would recommend these. So those are all the books that I've got to talk to you about today. Please leave me a comment below. Let me know, do you enjoy classics? Do you hate classics if you never read one? What's your favourite classic if you have one? Leave me a comment. Let's chat classics in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks guys. Bye.